This is Paul Schmid. Welcome to the Pursuit Zone. Janet Moreland is a self-described river rat and has been kayaking for 16 years. In the summer of 2013, she embarked on a solo kayaking expedition of the Missouri and Mississippi rivers from the source at Brower Spring, Montana, to the Gulf of Mexico. A 3,700-mile adventure of paddling and portaging. If she is successful, she will be the first woman to navigate this distance solo by kayak. One purpose of this expedition is to empower kids to get outdoors and to help them learn about the history, geography, and the natural environment of the Big Muddy. You can follow her expedition at loveyourbigmuddy.com. Janet Moreland, welcome to the Pursuit Zone.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Janet, tell me how you got the idea for this expedition.
Oh, my goodness. There are several people that influenced me. One person was Dave Miller from New York, who wrote The Complete Paddler. He was paddling through my area of the river at mile 170, Cooper's Landing, and was telling me about the river way up in Montana, and I was very intrigued by that, and thought, well, if he can paddle down, maybe I could paddle down someday. So he was the first person to plant the seed. Victoria Jason wrote a book, and she's since passed away since she wrote it. It's called Kabluna in the Yellow Kayak. She also influenced me by her solo kayak trip on the Mackenzie River up in the Northwest Territory and in the Arctic Circle. And I was reading her book just in the last few years and was pretty excited about her adventures. She's in her 50s, as am I, and kayaking alone up there, I thought that was pretty awesome. And so she kind of got me thinking, maybe I can do something like that. And then Norm Miller, who administers the Facebook page Missouri River Paddlers, he pretty much sealed the deal, watered the seed, however you want to look at it, when I joined his page, and he talked about me being the first woman possibly to paddle the entire length of the Missouri River, because I indicated that was something that I was thinking about doing. So,
now,
yeah.
I think on your blog, you'd mentioned Norman Miller sort of as a coach.
Mm-hmm.
So how did he help you?
Well, he's a great resource. He's paddled up the Missouri River in 2004 for the Lewis and Clark Bicentennial. He did an upriver trip starting in St. Louis, and he went up to the Rocky Mountains in Montana and then hiked over the trail that the Lewis and Clark expedition took, and then got back in his Kruger canoe and paddled on down to the Pacific Ocean. So he had quite a bit of experience, and he was willing to share it with me. And he also has turned his home into Base Camp International for paddlers who want to paddle the Missouri River. So he was willing to help me out, and I was willing to ask him a million questions as I was deciding whether or not I should pursue this expedition.
Janet, tell me what you can about the Missouri River. What do people need to know about it?
The Missouri River, well, first of all, it's the longest river in North America, the United States, and combined with the Mississippi River system, it is the fourth longest river in the world. So it's a mighty river, and it is one of the major arteries in our country. The Missouri River is just key to so much culture and history and Native American history and the steamship era and the science and the wildlife, and it's just the subject matter that surrounds the Missouri River is endless. And so I think that our children, our youth in our country for sure need to learn more about it. Of course, there's the ecology and the environmental stewardship aspect too that can also be touched upon, and that's just a great resource for teaching our youth about our nation.
So how has the expedition been going for you so far?
The expedition has been going fantastic. It's almost too good to be true. If you like camping, it's a great trip, and I love camping, so I've had a wonderful time. I've met just the most wonderful people along the way. It's been an exciting challenge dealing with the natural environment and elements, weather elements, and just making decisions to be successful on this great expedition. So it's been going very well. I'm loving it.
Take us through a typical day for you. How does that go?
Oh, let's see. The first thing I do is right before it gets light. Now, it used to get light at 4 o'clock in the morning when I started, but now it gets light at 7. So that's something that I've just sort of been changing with the season slowly. But around 7 o'clock, I'll wake up before it gets light, or right as it gets light, and the first thing I do is I check out my tent to see if the sun is out, if there's clouds out, if it's raining, and also if there's any color in the sky. That's the first thing I look for, because if there is any indication that there might be an opportunity for a photograph, I'll jump on it. And that's usually the first thing I think about. So I'll jump out of bed and go outside and see if there's a photo op, and whether or not there is, I'll usually just start walking around at that point and get a little exercise and listen to the birds and wake up out in the natural environment. It's very peaceful and satisfying for me. And then once I get up, it's time for coffee, and I'll work on fixing the cup of coffee. And ideally, it would be nice to read or write my journal, but usually that doesn't happen. Once I have my coffee, I listen to the weather, I'm packing up already. I get very motivated to keep moving, and a couple hours later, I may have my boat all packed up and ready to go, and I'll be on the water for the next several hours until around dusk. And then we'll unload and set up the tent is the first thing to do. Once the tent is set up, you can just start putting stuff in, and then you can go for a walk or cook dinner or read or get on the computer, post something to Facebook, whatever needs to be done to kind of wrap up the day. The last month or so I've been listening to the radio, maybe NPR or something, listening to some good music. So that's been kind of fun.
Is there a target number of miles that you set out to paddle each day?
I don't really, sometimes I know what my destination is. If there's a certain place where somebody's going to meet me, or if there's a town there, or there's a lot of people along the way that, want me to stop and they want to take care of me. So if there's a place, a destination in mind, then that's how many miles I'll do, whether it's 12 miles or 20 or 35. When you're on the lakes and you have no current, you really can't go as far. So 25 miles is a really good day on the lakes, and the lakes are a third of the trip. But once off the lakes down below, you're on the channelized river and you've got a pretty good current, and I can make 5 miles a day. So I can go from 35 to, I've done several 50-mile days. It's a long day, but if you figure 5 miles an hour, a 50-mile day is about 10 hours. So you've got to plan for that and be prepared to do a lot of paddling. There is no average really. It just depends on where you're at and if there's a current and if there's something going on.
So for someone that's never paddled before and they wanted to embark on an expedition like this, what would you advise for them in terms of their physical fitness? Do they have to train?
I don't know that you have to train. I know that there are men that have, young men and older men my age, have done this expedition without ever paddling before. So I don't think you have to even have paddling experience. I think it would help tremendously, just so you know what you're getting into. I jogged regularly. I would jog for 2 miles every other day the first 2 years before I left. But I've always jogged casually. I'm not a big runner. And I think there are some days when you're on the lakes with no current and perhaps a headwind where you need to have some stamina and you need to be able to have some good breathing. And if you work really hard, you can make some progress. And so if you're strong physically, you're going to do well. But that said, you will get strong once you start this expedition. You will become stronger if you're serious about it. That's definitely what happened to me. Even though I felt like I was really strong and prepared, I became even stronger, particularly as I started to lose weight. I started to become more fit. So,
originally, your plan was to just do the Missouri portion to St. Louis, Missouri, and then next year, in 2014, you were going to tackle the Mississippi River part. But now you're going to do it all in one chunk. What changed your mind?
Well, I recently acquired an education degree to be a middle school teacher, and originally I just had planned on doing the trip and then coming back and working a teaching job. And then next summer, when I had my 9 weeks off, I was going to go ahead and finish up the trip. But I didn't get a contract this year. And as I was paddling through a lake one day, I started to think about maybe if to pursue a serious teaching job, perhaps I should apply for summer school and get my foot in the door. And I started thinking about the dates that summer school run, and I realized it would be difficult to even do that if I took the summer to do the second leg of this trip. So then I started to think, well, if you can't really get a contract signed now, maybe you should go ahead and finish the trip now and then free yourself up next summer to get a job teaching summer school or whatever other opportunity might make itself available next summer. I could pursue a teaching contract more aggressively if I was at home rather than on the river. So it just made sense. Plus, doing the expedition, a source to see in one shot, is really more desirable for me to do. I think it's more appealing as a major expedition to do it all in one shot. So it was a pretty easy decision, but there were some people I had to talk to that are helping me out at home and financially, and I talked to the people too. I needed help financially, and people responded immediately, so it was the right thing to do.
How far into the expedition percentage-wise would you estimate you are right now?
I've paddled 2,400 miles out of 3,700. So
you're over half.
Yes, I'm over half. I'm probably 2/3.
Janet, tell me about the decision you had to make whether you were going to start at Brower Spring or not.
Deciding whether to start at the spring was pretty easy. I mean, it would have been easier to start at Three Forks. I could just drive up there, put my boat in the water, and off I'd go. But my nature is I'm a little bit self-efficacious. I like to go for it. And I knew if I was up there and I did not start at the source, I would regret it for the rest of my life. There were 2 gentlemen that just did it last year, so I knew it could be done. But in order to do it, I would have to start earlier, because originally I wanted to get back the 1st of August in case I had a job, I could get ready for school. So I just made up my mind that I would start in April, late April, early May, and I realized it's at 10,000 feet that there'd probably be snow in Montana. So I have a background of ski mountaineering, and I thought, well, I'm sure it's just like riding a bike. I'll just ski. And I did a lot of ski mountaineering as a youth, and, well, in my 30s. So that's what I decided to do. Fortunately, Norm Miller agreed to go with me. He can't resist a challenge and an adventure. So we both skied in, and we worked it out, talked to the National Aviation Administration. They have a radar tower up on Sawtell Peak, which is adjacent to the drainage we were going to, and they've got a switchback road that goes up, and we could take off from one of the switchbacks and save ourselves 6 miles, and it seemed like a no-brainer. So I worked that out. We got permission to go up the road, and they were plowing it. Everything just worked out beautiful, and he got some equipment for me to use from a friend, and we just decided we were going to go for it. We thought it would take 7 hours, an hour to get in, and, a 6-hour easy ski out because it was all downhill. But what we didn't realize is that with 10 feet of snow, there were avalanche dangers, avalanche slopes. There were terrain traps where you may be going through a ridge, a forest on a ridge, and then all of a sudden the ridge drops off, turns into a cliff, or you go down to the creek bottom and you'd lose your creek bank, and on the other side you might have an avalanche slope, so you'd have to back out. So we ended up taking 2 days. We were unprepared to stay all night in the mountains, but we did anyway, and we survived, but it was very cold, and we were really hungry and tired. We didn't have any food or sleeping bag or fire or anything like that. So that started off our adventure, and then I talked to the 2 gentlemen that had done it the year before, and I knew what to expect, and so I just tried to plan accordingly, and I knew it would be worth it if I did it, and certainly it has been worth it.
Now, you spent a lot of time in the planning stage, and you also spent a lot of time courting sponsorships. Tell me about that process of getting sponsorships.
Well, I had a lot of help from the guys that have already done expeditions. Norm, when he did his expedition in 2004, he had a lot of experience. There's a lot of websites out there that tell you how to approach a big company sponsor. So that's pretty much what I did. I just went to the obvious resources. I found out pretty quick that, until you get an expedition under your belt, a lot of big companies, they don't really have time for you, to put it bluntly. So I knew it was going to be a learning process and a growth, and I didn't expect too much. But I was able to get some key sponsorships and at least discounts, and I was happy with that. And I also had a friend that had some connections with Patagonia, and I knew if I got Patagonia on board, that would be an important sponsor that I could flaunt a little bit, to be honest with you. And plus, I love Patagonia's stuff. It's the best. So I was pretty proud when they decided to take care of me. And Eddie Line Kayaks came on board with their Swift paddles, and that was exciting, and I just loved them, so I wanted to promote them. I didn't care how little they gave me. They were just such a great company. And then Kokatat, of course, has got the premier paddling gear, and I had to keep on them, but I was confident that they would come on board once they settled down long enough to listen to me, and they did. They gave me a great deal on some stuff, and Spot was my first sponsor, so I was excited about that, Spot tracking. So it's a lot of work. It's a full-time job, and I was going to school and working full-time at the same time, so I put a lot of hours in getting ready for this expedition. It was a lot of work, but I was focused and determined. And
it sounds like your efforts paid off.
Yes, they have paid off. I also knew that I would not be able to do this financially without donations. So that I was a little bit uncomfortable about that at first, but once I realized it was necessary, I put a PayPal button on my blog, and I thought if people, are interested, they'll have an opportunity to donate money to help. And then I did a GoFundMe page, which I wasn't that happy with, just because I felt like I was selling myself and asking people for money, and I didn't really want to do that. I wanted people to come to me with heart set to give, and it has just blossomed into a really beautiful thing. And so it's really the people's expedition now is the way I see it. I have so many supporters that have donated financially that I'm happy to give back all my efforts to share my expedition. And it's been like that since day one. I've been sharing my expedition with everybody, and I can't really see doing it any other way. I don't want to keep all this to myself. It's too much fun.
Speaking of the people and the help that they're lending you via donations and so forth, how about some of the people that you're meeting along the way? How have they been?
The people I'm meeting along the way have been phenomenal. I have, it's just, words just don't even describe how great people are along the river. And people are they're thrilled when you go out and challenge yourself to do something so great as paddling 2,600 miles, 3,700 miles down the river. They want to help you. They can't do it themselves for whatever reason. They want to help you be successful. And we've had, people take us in to their home, pick us up and drive us miles, and take us out to dinner, give us money, bring us little care packages. People constantly asking, what do you need? What can I bring you? So it's as if everyone just wants to make sure that our needs are met. And I speak for all the paddlers on the river. It's the same for all of us. The people have been phenomenal. I've not met one person that wasn't willing to just give anything they could to help us out.
Tell me the story of your boat, how you got hold of it.
My boat has already been down the Missouri River once, so she's a good horse. She already knows the route. I'm lucky. I can just sit there and she takes me. I don't have to take the reins and guide her. Bob Bellingham did this trip last year. He started at Three Forks and ended in St. Louis, and he's from Australia. And he did not want to take his boat home with him. He thought, well, I'll sell it and my gear, and he thought that would be a good way to end his trip. And so we tossed out some price values, and it was, I think, the day before he left when I got him to come down a little bit, is what I'm trying to say.
Sounds like his back was against the wall a little bit.
Yeah, it was kind of against the wall. I had an opportunity. I had a good deal that Eddie Line was offering me for a new boat. So, I wanted to make sure that which deal was better. And he had some gear, a lot of spare hardware and some dry bags and buckets and paddles and such that came with my deal. And so it worked out really good. It was slightly used, but like I say, she knew the route. So it worked out well. And now he's talking about buying it back from me again. So we'll see what happens. It's a great boat.
You rechristened the boat Blue Moon. Why Blue Moon?
When my daughter and I drove to St. Louis, that's where it was stored at Michael Clark's place, and we were on the way home. We're like, we've got to think of a name, because I wasn't going to keep it Barbara May. That's Bob's wife. So it's a blue boat. So we just started throwing names out there, and you think about the moon and the full moon, something kind of romantic and whatever, spiritual or whatever. Blue Moon is pretty special, and it just seemed right. As soon as we came up with it, it was like Blue Moon. Oh boy, you can think about that in a lot of different ways, and it is kind of romantic. So it was a natural name for my boat. I like it.
How do you describe your boat to a boat person? I mean, like, what are the specs of it? How long is it? That kind of thing.
My boat is 17 feet long, which is fairly standard. It has a rudder. It's an open cockpit tandem kayak. It's carbon light, which is kind of a fiberglass plastic type. I don't know much about the details of the composite, but it's open cockpit. I take one seat out and put my seat in the middle, and I can load the inside of it. I kind of make my own little deck on it in the front so that I can put a deck bag in there. So I've got it kind of custom rigged. It's got a hatch in the front and a hatch in the back, and I can move my legs around much more than I could in a plastic sea kayak where the hatch is much smaller, and once you're in, you're in. I wanted something that I could move around a little bit more and have a little bit more freedom. I was afraid I wouldn't be able to get out one of those little tiny hatches if I was exhausted and sore. The Eddyline shaft has been down the river by 2 different paddlers already, and they loved it, so I took their word for it. A big part of my resource source is from paddlers who have done the river before. It's where I got a lot of my information, made a lot of my decisions based on their experiences.
You mentioned several times on your website about the River Relief Organization. What can you tell me about River Relief?
Missouri River Relief started in 2001. It's a nonprofit organization that facilitates river cleanups on the lower Missouri River. They are sort of stemmed off what Chad Pagracki was doing on the Mississippi River, and kind of they're an offshoot and an independent organization based on that. And they round up volunteers to come out and help with cleaning up the river, and they get people out on the river. They have river festivals where you'll get Department of Natural Resources, conservation, all kinds of environmental groups come down and set up booths, so it's an educational event, and they take schools out. Any school or teacher that wants to take their students out, they'll take them out. They want to educate teachers about the Missouri River and just basically get the classroom out on the river. And so I want to increase awareness of them. They've been doing this for 11, 12 years, all the way from St. Louis up to Yankton, where the dams are and where the dams start. I just love them. They work hard, they're dedicated, committed, and they're educating the people about this river that is the main artery through our country. And we just can't forget about it and neglect it. It's too important. And so I just love what they're doing, and I'm happy that I'm not going to school anymore and I can become more involved.
Janet, have you learned anything new about yourself since you set off on this expedition?
Well, it's funny that you asked me if I've learned anything new about myself. I did my first presentation today to a 4th grade class, and one of the students asked me that question, and I thought, that's a great question. And what I told them was, I've learned that I do not need a lot of stuff to be happy. I can't, as long as my needs are met, I've got food to eat and a place to sleep that's comfortable and secure, I don't need a lot of stuff. And I've been extremely happy and joyful on this expedition with just the basic items to fulfill my needs. And so it makes me think about all the stuff that we have in our society, and just how a lot of it is just so distracting from the natural environment and from people getting out and getting outside and exercising. like cars and television. I'm not sure which is the greater evil. They're both kind of, I mean, they're wonderful tools, but we don't need a lot of stuff, and that's definitely what I'm thinking has changed me. I feel like I just want to kind of purge a lot of the excess I have in my life and just live more simply.
Yeah, I don't have any data to back this up, but I think that a lot of the people that I interview on the show, there's that same sort of simplicity mindset that, I think that everybody has, including myself. I'm trying to always declutter and just get stuff out, and with less stuff, you just feel more free, I think.
Yeah, more free, and mentally, too, to focus on things that are more a part of our natural world. And I think that's where it's very important to make sure our youth don't get bogged down with a lot of materialistic clutter. And I just think their lives will improve. And so I think getting them out on the river is a first step. And getting adults out on the river is a first step, too. It changes people's lives, especially when you go out there and you contribute to society and the environment by picking up trash. I mean, it seems like it might be a fruitless effort, but the rewards are incredible. The camaraderie that you have with people and the sense of accomplishment, and you're giving back to society and humankind. I mean, it just makes you feel great, and your self-esteem is boosted, and then you can start thinking about greater things to do with your life. That's kind of the way I see it.
Do you have a piece of advice for somebody that might follow in your footsteps?
Oh, I have an idea on a couple women that will probably be next in line. My advice is, once you make a decision, if you've got to check out the basics to make sure you can do it, whatever parameters you may have in your life. But once you make that decision that you're going to do it, the desire is going to just explode, and the details are going to start working themselves out, and just the gratification, sense of accomplishment of pursuing a goal like this and achieving it is just a tremendous boost to your psyche, your mental, emotional, physical, psychological well-being. I think that it's a great goal to pursue, and I think they should expect wonderful things from doing a trip like this, and just enjoy all the thrills that go with it.
Are you still seeing those pelicans?
I haven't seen any lately. I know, right? I haven't seen any lately. I saw that one flock over St. Joseph. I was thrilled to see a whole flock. But they just don't hang out down here on the lower river. It's funny.
Janet, what's next for you?
Well, I'm going to finish this river trip, and I know there's something else out there. I just haven't figured out what it is. I don't have time to really research any other rivers. Hopefully I'll be able to free myself up to do something else, but in the meantime, I've got 2 or 3 books to write. And I don't know. Let's see what happens. I'm hopeful that this will flourish into something beautiful. But I definitely have a book I want to write about my experience. I have a curriculum book I want to write with lesson plans and activities for school-aged children surrounding the Missouri River and all the different subject matter that it encompasses, which is every subject matter. And then maybe even people have talked to me about putting out a coffee table photography book about the Missouri River. I think that would be kind of nice if I have enough photos to fill it up. But I think I've got some pretty good ones. So that's kind of a full-time job. I'm not sure how I'm going to swing that, but hopefully.
How can people get a hold of you?
Oh, loveyourbigmuddy.com. will always be my blog. I'm not sure where it's going to go after the trip. I guess figuring out how to follow through with an expedition like this, and all the book writing and things. Then there'll be sponsors that I'll be contacting too to get ready for the next river trip. I'm not sure where it's going to be, but it's going to be something thrilling, I'm sure. Not sure what country I want to go to, or if I want to go up north, or if I want to go south. So, loveyourbigmuddy.com, and also my Facebook page, if there's any interest in it. I'll still have that going too.
Okay, well, Janet Moreland, thank you so much for talking to me today. I really appreciate it, and good luck with the rest of your expedition.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it. I'm starting to get excited, and I appreciate you having me on your show. Finally, we were able to connect, and thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Great. Recorded September 20, 2013. For more great podcasts, visit thepursuitzone.com.